Okay, Be'ezrat Hashem, Na'aseh v'Natzliach. I'd like to welcome everyone to the Lighthouse project as we continue this new series called Did You Know? Interesting topics through the Jewish lens. Things that you might not normally hear in a Torah class. But you can see that there's a source for practically everything, actually everything, in our Holy Torah and in our religion. Before we get started, we'd like to give an honorable mention to our nightly sponsors, Anonymous, doing this in honor of Yaakov ben Ofra and Idan ben Bruria, for the success in finding the right life partner. Amen. And Anonymous, doing this in honor of Mashiach ben Nekadam. He should have parnasa and refuah. Amen. And refuah shlema from Menachem Mendel Messiah Batya and Devorah Feiga Bat Rezel. Our class also has its own sponsors. Baruch Hashem, we have our Issachar and Zevulun sponsorship. We have H&M Builders doing this in memory of their grandfather, in honor of the Dornbush family. Be'ezrat Hashem, that the Dornbush family have a lot of success. B'chai Natzachai and all they do, both b'ruchaniyut ve'b'gashmiyut. Same goes for the dear friend, a righteous woman from the East Coast, Miss Esther Bouton, doing this in honor of her sons, Yonatan, Michael, Eliyahu, and Shalom ben Esther. Be'ezrat Hashem, that they also have a big aliyah in the Ruchaniyut, and they have a lot of success in all that they do. And we also have Anonymous, doing this, Le'ilui Nishmat Aryeh Lei ben Yoshua Zichrono Lilvacham, and in honor of Shlomo Dovber ben Chayesar on his 80th birthday. May he continue to have Arichat Yamim. Chazak. Be'ezrat Hashem, just give him arichut yamim, refuah shelema, simchat chaim, and Be'ezrat Hashem, many, many more years, ad 120. All right, let's get started.
Let's add a little baby that I just got today.
Sure.
Menachem Mendel ben Esther.
Menachem Mendel ben Esther, and Biklal Cholei Amo Yisrael, and to that tzachah, to all the people in the room, anybody that needs parnasa, health, zivugim, yeshuot, Be'ezrat Hashem, everybody get what they deserve. It's a big when you make an effort in the middle of the week to come at 8 o'clock at night to be in a room and hear Torah for an hour. Be'ezrat Hashem, may Hashem pay you 1,000 times over.
What they need, not what they deserve.
What they need, Chazak. Okay.
They have to get what they deserve, right?
No.
That's for a different class. Let's get started. Okay. So here's an interesting topic: aliens. This is a very unique topic. Many have wrestled with this question. Many have asked the question of, do aliens exist? Are there other life forms out there? Are we alone in the universe? You know, in the process of my teshuvah, I was very curious about all of that. And I'm not an expert, but after extensive research, I wanted to know, with my religion, what does the Torah say about aliens? And this is typically a process of Baalei Teshuvah. If you really want to have a good Teshuvah process, you should ask all the questions. All the cobwebs that you have in your mind, go, ask. No matter how weird it is, how strange it is, and see what the Torah's answer is to that. And you'd be shocked, because the truth feels so good when you hear it. So I'm not going to teach tonight, because I am not an expert. I will share with you what I found. And the more you dig, the more you'll find. I'm not going to share everything with you, because there are some higher level learning that we can do about this particular topic in a Talmudic level, on a Torah level, but this is just for you to get a tasting, a sampling of this topic, and hopefully you get the right answer to the questions that we have. And like I said, the more you dig, the more you'll find. And that what you do find is that there's more than meets the eye. There's a lot out there that is above and beyond what we can see, what we can hear, what we can feel, what we could use our 5 senses to experience. There are many other forces at play within our universe. There's many levels of divine technology, divine powers that are part of the fabric of our existence, even though we're not aware of it. And even though we're not cognizant of its existence and its purpose or its participation in our lives, but it's out there. It's a wondrous world that we live in. Shtabach Shemo La'ad, God's world. The more you look, the more you look at the blueprint of God's creations, the more your jaw drops. There are many, many amazing phenomenons in this world. I'll just name a few. Nothing to do with aliens, but you should know that they're out there. There is such a concept as the law of attraction. It's invisible, but it's out there. It's not just for physical, it's not just for people where a man is attracted to a woman or vice versa. Not that law of attraction. That's also some sort of force. But there's certain zodiac signs that are drawn to other zodiac signs, and some that should just stay away from one another. There's such a thing as soul groups, which is a certain chemistry that people have. It's this unexplained bond and connection with people that you just met. Sometimes you feel that a relationship needs to be developed. You need to get to know the person. Yet you'll bump into somebody and instantly you feel like they're your best friend and you're able to share with them, confide in them, trust them. And oftentimes those are people that are in your soul group. Oftentimes they turn to be your best friends. And those are the best friends that sometimes you might not even speak or see for 5 or 10 years. But when you do see them, it's like a second didn't pass. There is such a thing, the law of attraction. There's something out there that's called palmistry, the art of hand and the face. We've spent several classes on this last year. How a person can actually use his hands as the GPS, a guide to his life. The way that the shape of his face and the lines on his hand can actually direct him on what could possibly happen, what's the potential of happening. And I don't know anyone yet who's produced this type of technology or this type of service. Nobody out there can say, hey, I can predict your future. I can even tell you what was in the past and what will be soon. Yet we have that in the palm of our hands. There's telekinesis, which it's an umbrella term for an ability that involves using the mind to influence and manipulate. Imagine a person just sitting across the room from you and he can influence and manipulate you. And even move objects and move different matter around. We've seen this at times. Magicians do it. Most of the time that's not real, but sometimes we've seen some real people that hold this type of gift where they're able to bend spoons, flip cup, predict cards from a deck. Not the way the magicians do. People that can really do it. I actually just recently this week saw something incredible. In a shul, a guy actually put his glasses down on top of the bima, and he was actually able to make his glasses flip over without touching it. He went a little bit like this, a bit like that, and the glasses flipped.
Is he doing any more
The energy.
demonstrations?
His energy.
Yeah,
Is he doing any more demonstrations?
I'll let you know if I find out.
I'll like to see
Even when you
that.
do,
Yeah.
even when you do Reiki,
I'll be
invisible
there.
string.
Whatever I'm doing, I'll be there.
Invisible string.
No. Let's keep it serious. So, another thing, we're talking about what we're saying here tonight. I'm not here to promote magic, comedy, or I'm not here to sell you on anything.
What about Mufon?
I'm here to share with you the Torah's version of what aliens are. So I'm going to introduce you what the world thinks of it, and then I'm going to give you the Jewish side of it. I was even able to see somebody do something really interesting. He was in a room full of strangers. He asked for a deck of cards. He took a deck of cards, asked somebody to take a random card, and then they used that person's phone to call somebody in a different place, and he told them that gentleman on the other line also holds telekinesis powers. And wouldn't you know it, the guy 1,000 miles away was able to guess, just with a little bit of concentration, what that person was holding somewhere in LA. There are these powers. That's all we're trying to prove over here, is that there are certain powers in the world. There's also another power called telepathy, which is a supposed communication of thoughts or ideas by means other than the known senses. In other words, I can communicate with somebody without using my 5 senses. That's a power that's out there in the universe. Certain people do hold it, do have it.
I would say that telepathy is very common. I mean, when my husband was alive, and I would be thinking about him, when is he coming for dinner, around 4, or is he going to be delayed or whatever, he'd call me right then and there.
That's when you're connected. That's when you have a connection. Oftentimes it's very common, not very common, but it's common that certain people that have a strong bond, a strong connection, when that soul nears, you get almost like a message in your brain. Now if you're aware, if you got that antenna up, then you look into it or you live with it. Otherwise you just say, oh, what a coincidence, I was just thinking of you. Really? Is it a coincidence?
There's also synchronicity. Not only the people telepathically that are connected, but synchronicity when your whole life is going that way.
That's true too.
Thinking that everything is manifesting in front of you.
And if you're able to pick up on those signals, and as a matter of fact, for certain people that know how to live that way, can actually navigate their life according to these signals. Mm-hmm. There's another phenomenon out there, seances, where people can actually speak to the dead. Where people will speak to people that have passed on, and the dead soul is able to read thoughts, predict the near future. However, they're also very temperamental. Many of the people that have done seances have gotten hurt from it. It's not recommended, especially it's forbidden by our religion. It's called lidrosh bametim. We don't do that, but it's out there. It's possible. And many people sometimes do take that option of trying to settle their mind. For example, when somebody has a bereaved family member, somebody who just lost somebody, and they just, the person passed without telling me that one thing, we never spoke, there's something left undone, and they must have the answer. Sometimes they refer to these methods. In the Israeli army, seances are very common. Very, very common. There's many times when soldiers that are part of platoons lose a certain friend that they've been with for several years, and as they're sitting around and they're thinking about him, or they want to just see how it happened, or get more information, or have a connection because you have a strong bond, they do a seance in order to speak with that person. But that's another force that's out there.
I thought it's forbidden, though they shouldn't do it.
It is forbidden.
Oh, so they just do it.
Yeah.
It's forbidden in the army, like by a military order.
I don't know about that. It's forbidden by our religion.
Like that, I know. Yeah.
But the army, I have no idea.
You're not allowed to try to communicate with that.
There's also such a thing as paranormal activity. And paranormal events are phenomena described in our popular culture and other non-scientific bodies of knowledge. And they explain that paranormal events they lie beyond our normal experience or scientific explanation. In other words, it's happening, or it happened, but we don't have a scientific explanation for it, and it's not something that is normally experienced by human beings. And that gets classified as paranormal activity. That's very popular in horror movies.
Does it have anything to do with a house that has spirits or bad?
Exactly.
bad
A haunted
energy?
house.
But
That's like
through
Dracula's
Kabbalah,
castle,
they
right?
can clean up the house.
They could. We do have that. We do have the tools.
Souls that are stuck.
We do have the tools to do that. As a matter of fact, there's laws. There's laws in Los Angeles, for example, that when a person sells a home, he has to let the buyer know if somebody died in that house
Sure, if you're wrong.
because of paranormal activities. So, in popular horror movies, you'll see paranormal activities such as a haunted house, a spooky 8-year-old, a scary forest. All these things where strange beings or strange things are happening from alternate realities. And that's also where you hear the most mention of alien life forms when they speak about paranormal activities. As Jews, this should not surprise us. None of what I just mentioned should be a big surprise, like, is it really out there? Could it really be done? Because anything is possible in God's world. We have a pasuk that says, "Marabu ma'asecha Adonai, kulam bechokma asita." It says, how great are your actions or your creations? Marabu ma'asecha, there's so many of them. Kulam bechokma asita. Everything has its unique divine knowledge that you put into it. Whether it's the planet, the way that it's built, the core that spins it, the moon that gives us the gravity, the oceans, the land, the trees, the animals, the human beings, Earth, space, the Milky Way, the galaxies. It's unbelievable. The details that have been given to every little thing in our planet. And all the divine purpose that each one has. Now, none of this was taught to me in school. Everything that I mentioned, I never heard about this in school. I never heard about it at home either. And maybe it's also because no one's really interested in this type of information. It's not something that everybody is really drawn to really want to find out about it. And also, most of it hasn't been scientifically proven yet. These are all things that they're constantly disproving through science. But with all that being said, with all these strange forces in the world, what does the Torah have to say about it? What does the Torah say about aliens? You might ask the same questions that I've asked, which are, do aliens exist? Are there other worlds with life on them like ours? Are we alone out there? Could thousands of people be lying that they saw aliens? Why do they always describe them as the same form? Big eyes, no hair, spaceships, flying saucers. What has science proved about UFOs and alien life forms? What does our Holy Torah, the Talmud, and our rabbis say about aliens? Well, in order to get these answers, first we have to take the scientific route. Right? Because that's what people trust. Science. Let's see what science has figured out about aliens. Well, scientists, researchers, astronauts, governments all over the world, NASA, satellites, super powerful telescopes, and the latest technology used by international space programs, and billions of dollars later, have come up with nothing. There's no proof. There's no proof that there's life out there. And they're looking.
Do you know that? Or are you just saying the status quo tells you?
The rest of the lesson will...
They don't want to know that there's out there because they're hiding secrets.
The rest of the lesson will...
Okay, sorry.
Nevada. It's called Erie.
Sablanut.
I'm going to ask you guys to let the lesson unfold, because this subject matter is always another question that can come up, always another question comes up, because it's very interesting. But all these questions, I might not even have the answer for. The real point that I really want to get out is what the Torah has to say about it. That's what I came
You
for.
wouldn't want the answer. You wouldn't be sitting here.
Say it again?
You wouldn't be sitting here if you had that answer.
Yeah, I guess.
Why not?
I don't know. Let's just keep going.
Okay.
So, the search for life in outer space, both by professional and by novices, hasn't produced any proof of life. That's the bottom line right now. We found some frozen water on Mars, which is nowhere near close to being a candidate for the next inhabitable planet. And it definitely cannot support any sort of life form at the moment.
Didn't they find bacteria too?
So why have so many people around the world have testified and swore that they had the experience of either seeing an alien, communicating with an alien, abducted by an alien, tortured by an alien, even molested by an alien? Yet the professionals came up with nothing. If we continue on the scientific route, research shows that the planet Earth is a speck of dust, a small speck in the overall seemingly endless galaxy that we're a part of. If you ever saw the Milky Way, we're so tiny within the Milky Way. If you see what the Milky Way is in the context of the entire galaxy, we're like this small little nothing in the universe. And with all these billions and billions and billions of stars and thousands of planets, there's not one candidate for a planet like ours. There's not one planet out there that can hold a life form, or even has shown that anything has lived on it. Our cameras really go really far out and still have found nothing. Furthermore, the most sophisticated technology today still hasn't been able to actually calculate the real size of the universe. But we know the size of it. If you study Masechet Berachot, which is a Gemara that has been written roughly about 1500 years ago, it says over there on the 32nd page that the Talmud records the tradition from Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish that there are roughly 1,018 stars in the universe. Actually, they gave us a different calculation, meaning that it's 1,018 battalions, and each battalion is a galaxy, and each galaxy has its own universe. So in other words, when they say 1,018 stars, it's like 1,018,000,000,000 stars in the universe. And that's just divine knowledge that was given to our sages. And that's without a telescope, and that's without any tools. The telescope was created in the 16th century, and at that time they were only able to see only 9,000 stars. Today they're finding out that this number is very, very close. I mean, they didn't get to this number yet. They're almost there. They're about 300 billion stars away, as far as the count goes. As a matter of fact, one of the biggest examples to how science has been off on their calculation is the distance to the moon. Masechet Brachot also brings that the distance to the moon is about 43,000 parsa. And parsa is 4 mil. It's a measurement. Basically, it comes out to be about 183,500,000 meters. About 40 or 50 years ago, when NASA put up the first Hubble telescope, they came out with a calculation of how far the moon is. And they were completely at adamant that that was the exact number. 20 years later, 30 years later, they put up a better satellite. And what happened then? They found out that they were off by a few digits. Their latest calculation is still not this. They're still off by a 0.00765. They'll get there. But it's amazing that we've had this information 1,500 years ago.
Amen.
As a matter of fact, our entire universe is governed by space, time, and quantum physics. Today, the most precise clocks in the world, even atomic clocks, that are able to use principles of quantum theory to measure time, and they monitor specific radiation frequency needed to make electrons jump between different energy levels. And at the moment, there's only the fastest speed that we have is the speed of light. That's the fastest speed that this entire universe or galaxy works by. And if you take the speed of light and you calculate some of the planets that are very far away, even if you were to travel by the speed of light all the way back to our planets, it will take thousands and thousands of years for them to get here. Even if they did. And through that trip, they're going to come across asteroids, space dust, special gases, that not every environment is the same in space. And if you're traveling at the speed of light and you hit a small rock or an asteroid or some space dust, that collision is bound to collide. That collision will basically produce an atomic bomb. So it's very hard to believe that there's a spaceship out there flying on its way here. And even if they were to take this type of trip all the way to planet Earth, if they don't run out of gas or this huge Energizer battery that's powering their spaceship, why would they come all the way over here just to scare us and go? Just to fly around in the sky for a few seconds and jet back home? They made such a long trip. Don't they want to sit down, talk, maybe talk to another intelligent life form, exchange information? What would be the reason that an alien life would make this entire trip all the way to our planet and have such a short-lived stay and go? So, alien life is clouded by skepticism, both in science and in other forums, because there's a lack of solid proof. But what is their purpose in this world? Why does God have aliens in this world? Well, aliens in Hebrew are called Chayzarim. What's Chayzarim? Chay means alive, Zarim, strange, like strange beings, strange life forms. But in reality, that's the modern terminology for them. What they're really called in Hebrew is Shedim, Shindaletim. What are Shindaletim? We don't try to say the word Shedim too much, because the more you say that word, the more we give them power. So throughout the lesson, I will just say Shindaletim, okay? Shedim is the Hebrew word for demons or spirits, and also designates a supernatural creature in Jewish folklore. So if aliens, according to Judaism, are the Shindaletim, let's get some history about them. Let's go all the way to the beginning of time. During the 6 days of creation, God created everything that's within the world, and He rested on the 7th day. On the 6th day, right before Shabbat, there was a time period called Ben Hashmashot, twilight. And during that time, Hashem was still creating. And the Mishnah Pirkei Avot on the 5th perek tells us of the 10 things that Kadosh Baruch Hu created in that twilight period. I'll read them off to you, but I'll stop at the one that pertains to our class. The mouth of the earth that swallowed Korach, like from a couple of weeks ago in Parashat Shavua. The mouth of the well that gave the water to the Jewish people in the wilderness. The mouth of the donkey, like in this week's Parashat Balak with Bilam. The rainbow, the manna, Moshe's staff, the shamir, that special worm that we spoke about last week that was able to cut stone, the writing and the inscription and the tablets, and some say also the destructive spirits, Moses' burial place, Abraham's ram, and some say tongues are made with tongues. But to our class, during the twilight were created the destructive spirits, that in Hebrew is the Shin Dalatim. So that was their birth. Let's continue. These destructive spirits, when they were created neshamot, just souls, no body. There's a midrash for Shem Shemuel says there were incomplete creations. It came to the time that HaKadosh Baruch Hu had to do Kiddush for Shabbat, and they weren't created with their sustenance. And they don't have any sort of Hayut or Mezonot. What's Hayut? They don't have any way to stay alive. The way that the Shin Dalatim stay alive, their life source is Kedusha. They have to suck out of the Kedusha in order for them to stay alive. The same way that we have air and food and our entire system within our bodies to stay alive, these Shin Dalatim, the way that they stay alive is off of Kedusha. The more that they suck Kedusha out of whatever they could, that's how they stay alive. Ela mashi shodim vegodvim, and also why they called Shin Dalatim? Because Shem shodedim, they are robbers. So look, the word shoded, robber, is very close to the word shed. Vegonvim, and they steal. They're robbers, they're thieves, and they're also evil. Later on in Sefer Bereshit, we get another part to the story. This Shin Dalatim had more help. Welcome. Adam HaRishon, after separating from his wife for 130 years, he immersed himself in a river. And during this process, when he was immersed in the river, he was in a state, like a sleeping state. And at night would come the Lamed Yud and Taf, which is the female version of the Yetzer Hara, and she would extract. Yeah, that's her name. We don't say her name. Lamed Yud and Taf. And she would come during that time, and she would take from him these drops of seed, that from them she was able to create beings, Shin Dalatim. Look what the Midrash says. All throughout those years, I'm reading it in Hebrew, but I'll translate it to speed up things. All those years, when Adam was in that sleeping state, Hayamolid, he was able to bring forth Ruchin, Shedin, Velilin. These are three different classes of these spirits. And Rav Nisim, in the name of Rav Sharira, says, he says that the reason why that because he was in a sleeping state, and because he was in a cursed state. Remember, this is now, he got kicked out of Gan Eden. He was cursed. This is prior to his teshuvah. So everything that came out of him was weird. Had different shapes. It wasn't like pretty like a human being. They had different faces, briot meshunot, they were odd beings, and they had ugly faces, ugly shapes to them, vehem ruchot raot, and they were evil spirits.
Can I ask you a question? Are these physical beings that we're talking about? Are they? They're spirits. So
they're spirits, but they can take a physical form at times. Like for example, Avraham Avinu, when he was sitting outside of the tent and the 3 angels came to him, and he went and he brought him, he did achnasat orchim, they took the form of what? Traveling guests. They took a form of a human being. They are able to. There are times where they'll reveal themselves in a certain way. But overall, they're invisible and they're not seen to us, and that's by design. And we'll visit that in a second.
And how do you get rid of them?
Oh, there's many ways. They're not as strong as they used to be, especially not in cities. Furthermore, another sect that gets added to this group of the Shin Dalitim was during the time of Bereshit also, when God's angels fell to the earth. And they coveted the beautiful women, the humans. And they had relations with a certain woman. And from that time, there was another sect of beings that got created, souls with no bodies. The Ramban, not Maimonides, says, Ne'ama, that was her name. You'll see she gets mentioned one time in the Sefer Bereshit, that she was a very beautiful woman. And with her, the fallen angels had relations. And we learn it from the pasuk that says, "Vayir'u bnei Elokim et bnot ha'adam." And the fallen angels saw, who did they see? Bnot ha'adam, the daughters of Adam Arishon. Now, do we know Adam having daughters? We know Cain and Hevel and Shet. Those are the 3 boys that we know of, and we know that they were born with a twin, but it's a different midrash. But Bnot Adam that they're talking about, this was one woman by the name of Ne'ama that was born through the process when he was in the river. And because she was created during that time period, and she had relations with these fallen angels, all these different Shin Dalitim came from her as well. So look at these different sects now they're grouping together. Now this is the aliens that we're speaking of.
What's the relation? You mean the angels took a human form?
No, we're not talking about human form yet.
So how do they have relations with?
Later on, you'll see what is the similarities between angels and human beings in the Shin Dalet form.
So Niyama was a human being?
No. Yes, she was a human being.
Oh,
Okay. Here's some more unique things, unique, interesting facts about these creations from the beginning of time. Kulam ba'im mitzat small. They all come from the evil side. They're all evil. V'na'alamim me'en adam. They're invisible. They can't be seen. Mu'afafot beliguf. They're able to fly without a body. Why are they able to fly? Because every single thing on this planet is made from the 4 elements: fire, wind, water, and earth. They were made just from 2 elements: fire and wind. Because they were made from fire and wind, they don't have the elements that weigh them down. They're able to fly, and they're also able to move very quickly because they're only made of 2 elements. It says over here, "Shegavru alav ha'esh va'avir." I'll say it in English, and that they are, since they're created from these 2 elements, they are not heavy at all, and they are able to fly vast distances very quickly. Another way of creating these Shin Dalitim, which is a different level, this is a little bit of an adult topic, I hope you can handle it. These negative angels, these destructive angels, can be created when a man spills his seed, when it's not done properly, when it's not done in a way of a mitzvah, when he's not doing it to bring children into this world. What happens? All that sperm those are all small pieces of life. Now, since they're not deposited into a woman where she can take that and develop it into a human being, which is the whole idea of procreation, then they are now souls with no body. So what happens? They're looking to say, who created me? Who created me? Whoever, and they look at the person that created him, and they say, okay, you created me, you feed me, you take care of me, and they become these destructive angels. And these destructive angels follow a person everywhere that he goes, and they give him hardships. Typically that happens when a person doesn't protect himself at night properly. Doing Shema Yisrael, they say sleeping on your back with your mouth open is not very good, not for men. That's why the halakha is to start sleeping on your left side. It helps out with that. But they get created like that as well. Now, there's another pasuk that says, this is in the Nevi'im, Vayigal Hashem et enei anai Elisha, v'hineh rochev esh v'suseh esh. You have to understand that our eyes right now have veils. There's many different veils, like little curtains on our eyes, that prevents us from seeing everything in this world. If Hashem lifts up one veil, we can see something else. Like for example, Nevuah, Hashem lifts up a veil and the person can see something. For example, right now in the room, we have thousands and thousands of spirits right here in the room right now. Angels that are waiting to get activated. Should you do a mitzvah, an angel goes up and he says, so-and-so did a mitzvah, and they go up to the Shamayim and they testify. Should a person do an avirah, same thing, that angel goes up and says, this so-and-so made an avirah. In Masechet Berachot, it talks about us being able to lift that veil from our eyes and be able to see it. The problem with that is that we can't handle it. Many have tried and have gone crazy from it, and it's very hard to come back from it. And in Masechet Berachot, it talks about the process that a person can do in order to do that. And once they do that, it's very hard to come back from it. But all it is it's a veil. Now, over here, when the pasuk says Gal Einai, it says there was a certain period over here, a certain scenario where one of these veils got lifted. V'hineh rochev esh v'suseh esh. He was able to see chariots of fire. He was able to see horses of fire, meaning big, bright beings that are flying around very quickly in the sky. To answer your question, Yalkut Reuveni says, Bereshit bara Elokim. He says in the beginning of time when God created the world, he said he divided it into 3 different sects. He says, Adam eno roeh et hashedim. He says a human being cannot see demons, the Shin Dalatim. Veshedim enam roim et hamelachim. And the Shin Dalatim are not able to see angels. V'malachim enam roim kadosh baruch hu. And angels cannot see God. There's like veils. Each one has a veil where they can't see certain levels. However, sometimes nir'im kemar'eh shebnei adam. Sometimes they're able to come in the form of a human being. However, they don't have hair on their head. How interesting. Furthermore, the Gemara says, Tanu Rabbanan, Shisha dvarim ne'emru b'shedim. 6 things were said about the Shin Dalatim. It says 3 things they are like angels, and 3 things they are similar to human beings. The 3 similarities that they have to angels is that they have wings, and they're able to fly from one end of the world to the next in very fast speeds. And they know the future. They can predict the future. And 3 things are similar to human beings. 1, they eat. 2, they drink. 3, they procreate. They have children.
Why do they need to eat and drink? They don't have a body.
That's how God made them. Umetim kevnei adam, and they also die. Now they might not eat an apple. Maybe they have their own sustenance. And this whole concept that they say that they're able to predict the future comes from one reason. The reason is they fly very high. And when they fly very high, they fly to this area where when things happen in the world, it gets announced. A voice goes into the world and says, this is going to happen. This is the future. So they're so close to that part of the world or part of the universe, that they're able to hear it and they're able to report it. They're also able to, remember like we said in telepathy, they're able to read minds. So for example, if they want to trick you, they can tell you, you know, I know that you on last week you were on a trip to Bahamas. How do you know? Because they're able to read people's minds and get the information from it. However, if you ask him a question about somebody who's not here, for example, I can ask him, well, yeah, where was my sister last week? So they don't know, and they'll give an answer. I can verify it and see that they were wrong. They're big liars as well. But the reason why they can tell the future is because of how they fly and their ability to get into people's minds. So that's very interesting. A little bit of what the rabbis and the Talmud tell us about who they are, what they are, how they behave, what's their similarities. But what is their purpose on this world?
That's what I was going to ask.
What's their purpose? Why would God create such a being? Well, they are called mezikin. They're here to cause damage. They're almost like the damage police. When damage needs to get done in this world, who's going to do it? They are. When a person needs to something have happened to him, start to give him a hard time, who's going to carry it out? They are. When a person spills seed and he creates all these angels and he starts having hardships in parnasa, he's having a hardships with livelihood, and he's having a hardship with finding his zivug, and he's having a hardship with getting more religious, or whatever the hardships are, who's making it hard for him? It's those beings that created that are constantly drawing him in to the other side because he created them. Now there's ways to get rid of them. Shema Yisrael at the end of the night helps out a lot. There's different ways of prayers. Basically learn Torah and they go away. The more you learn Torah, the more these things just dissipate. They do die. The thing that keeps them alive is Kedusha. And what do? What do? They look for Kedusha. But what type of Kedusha? The Kedusha that's not done the right way. The person that puts on tefillin and he's not even there. He's tuned out. He's not even concentrated. What do? They come and they take all his words and they take all, in the tefillin, you know, we have those 3 little hairs that stick out. They like a baby sucks on a pacifier. They go over there and they start taking all the Kedusha. There's a way to do things even when a person thinks he's doing something correctly in a holy manner. If it's not done in a holy way, all of it goes to the sitra achra, to the other side. And that's how they get their sustenance. They typically, to answer your question, they typically don't reside in cities. It's very rare. They like to live in deserts, open spaces, in sadot, in fields. That's why it's called sadeh. It comes from the word, the same way the shin dalet is of the shedim. They live in the sadot. That's their place. They like open spaces. They like ruins.
Haven't they been banished?
Yes. So this is back in the days. You couldn't travel by yourself. You have to travel in twos. If you travel by yourself, you'd have to have some light with you. They were a lot more prevalent because people lived in homes that were made out of clay. And, for example, right now in Morocco, it's still very prevalent, all these stories. Why? Because all their homes are clay homes. And a lot of what they do is earthenware and metals, and they're able to hold on to those things. So there's a rabbi that came one time and says, we can't go on like this. We can't go on with all these Shin Dalatim always bothering all the people. And he made a certain prayer where their power, their influence got minimized in the world. And now they are here. They are here, but not as much as before. And definitely not in cities, or not as much in cities. Let me not say that. Not so much in cities, but in open spaces and in ruins. That's their stomping ground. You should be careful.
Cemeteries?
I would assume so.
Isn't that one of the reasons why you need to have a shomer on the body? For that reason?
Because they want to...
To take over, to get inside.
Yeah. Like I said, I wasn't going to get into every little thing. I'm not an expert. I just pulled out a few things.
Everybody at the funeral not pure because the body's there and they're having a thing and they pass it.
It's true, but we are all, that whole concept of pure and impure stopped thousands of years ago. stopped during the times of Beit HaMikdash. We are all in the state of impure. We're all in the state of tameh met. What's tameh met? That's the worst type of tumah you can have. We're all that. You can shake anybody's hands. You can sit anywhere. It's not like that. There's other different the concepts of tumah that we follow, like the tumah of the nidah, the one of the woman when she's in her menstrual cycle, and different tuma'at met of the dead. But in reality, that tumah that the Bible speaks of, it's not around at the moment.
I have seen, like when there's a funeral, that the children do not go to the father's funeral because these demons are following the casket, and something may happen to them.
So this is what happens. What is that? Where does that stem from? Because a person in this world created children, but he created other children too, like we said. So now they come to the funeral, and these other children, these souls without a body, see it's somebody who has a soul and a body. They become jealous. Now we said these are the bad guys. So what do? They try to harm the children that have bodies. So it's not recommended that the sons go to a funeral, only because we don't know of the other sons that he created.
Harm the soul now? Because he's out of the body.
The children.
What about the soul himself? He's the one who created them.
What about it?
They will try to harm him. He's out of the body.
They take revenge.
I don't know.
He has to answer to a higher authority.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that.
He doesn't have to answer to that.
The king of what you were saying, the demons, had webbed feet.
They do. One of the signs that they have is that they have like a tripod, like three. I'll give you. Wow, you know what? You brought the story out of me. They do. They do. How do you know? How do you know that when they take a human form? How do you know? Is it a human? Is it a shindalet? Look at the feet. They have the feet of a chicken. Now, you know, we try to say, this sounds like all ancient. About 15 or 20 years ago, one of my good friend's father owned a garage in New York City. A garage where all the taxis would come and get serviced. And he comes in one day after, one day to work, 6 o'clock in the morning, and he sees his entire garage filled with paint and with footprints all over the garage. And, footprints of 3 feet, like a chicken walking. Not a chicken, just three toes. Now, he was Iraqi. They have history with this back in the days. He's heard stories from his parents and from his grandparents. He knew exactly what it is. So what he did is he went in, he yelled. He said, "Whoever did this, come back and fix it. And if you don't, I'll fix you." And he closed the door and he shut the door for the day. He came back the next day, the whole garage was cleaned up.
Oh wow!
If you want to meet this person, his son prays right next to me, and he prays two seats down. This is something real.
Wait, but you said they don't have a physical body, so how can they make the footprints?
When they take the human form.
Okay.
So, I'll throw one other crazy story out there, because alien stories are crazy. A friend of mine shared with me when this topic came up a few years ago, that his father's family, side of the family, had a person that married a shindalet.
What? Whoa.
It's happened before, but that's one thing.
A lot of people.
Secondly,
I got some relatives too.
Wait a second.
We're not alone.
So, what do you do
I'll
when you
bet
found
you.
out?
I don't know these things. I can tell you, here's another thing. Esther HaMalka, when she was summoned to be with Ahashverosh, and at that time she was still married to Mordechai, and she was supposed to have relations with the king. He's the king. And she was allowed to, but she didn't. What did she do? She was able to summon a Shin Dalet that looked exactly like her, and the Shin Dalet is who slept with him.
So she used
The Midrash brings it.
She used a double.
A double, you could say.
With her chicken feet.
Now, you can see that I guess he didn't notice. Ahashverosh was not noticing that.
It's okay, she's bringing us to learn this the whole time.
Now, just to bring it back to our lesson, you can see that if you've ever heard any alien stories, most alien stories are very similar to Shin Dalet stories. When they say I was sexually molested by an alien, how did that happen? It's what they do. You know why? Because their character is to bother, is to laugh, to taunt. That's what they do. They come, they bother the human beings, and they leave. So they take over, like for example, they said that they were able to communicate with the alien without speaking to them. We just proved that. We know that they're able to read thoughts and they're able to send messages. We're talking about aliens being able to fly fast. How is it possible that they have these images of, I guess, quote unquote, flying saucers, flying at 3, 4, 5, 800 miles an hour and making a 90-degree turn? It's not possible if you're an aircraft, if you're made out of metal, if you're heavy. The only reason why it's possible to do that is because of Shalom Aleichem. The only reason why it's possible to do that is because they are made of fire and wind. And because they are made of fire and wind, they can perform that way. So what we're seeing is the Shin Daletim taking the form of what we think is a flying saucer, what we think is a spacecraft. It just seems that way. Or they present themselves that way. But it's them. Almost every story that is out there is very similar to the characteristic of these beings. We also, the images that we have, often they have no hair. Often they have this weird skin. So we see that it goes hand in hand in all the characteristics that we learn about them. There's a lot of similarities of how modern age, I say society, views aliens, has related to them, has documented them, has perceived them. And when it comes to the question, are there other life forms out there? The answer is yes. The only difference is that they're not out there, they are here. As a matter of fact, I just shared with you just about Shin Daletim, just about aliens. But this world, we know that there is 7 worlds and 7 heavens. If you really want to talk about other beings that are within this planet, we're not even talking about them. Imagine the world as an onion. Peel it, 7 layers, and within each layer there's a different world. The rabbis tell us, and the Talmud speaks of how each level, what type of different being lives within them. Maybe we'll do a class about the 7 worlds and the 7 heavens. Maybe, because that's completely fantasy land, which I love.
Me too.
You gotta have the right. You have to have the right crowd for it.
With the right crowd.
This entire lesson is a chizuk. This entire lesson is how incredibly unique our Jewish life is. In this mega galaxy that we live in, with millions of stars and thousands of planets, we are on the only planet that is perfect for life. And furthermore, we are a minute percentage of the people that live on this planet. What is the percentage of a Jew on planet Earth?
Half of 1%.
Half of 1%. And not only that, on this small planet, in this vast universe, this vast galaxy, and all its inhabitants were this 0.5%, and what are we? We are the chosen people. We are God's children. God refers to us as B'ni Bechori. You are my firstborn. Furthermore, we say in Sefer Bereshit, it says, whoever curses you is cursed, whoever blesses you is blessed. What's Baruch? What does the word Baruch stand for? Take the word Baruch and split it in two. Bar Chavav. Bar, just like Bar Mitzvah, the son. Chavav, 26. The son of 26. That's who we are. We are the son of 26.
Beautiful.
And in this unique universe that we live in, people spend a tremendous amount of time, a tremendous amount of money to figure out creation through science, through research, and always excluding the Creator and the Torah. Yet, tonight, we've seen a little glimpse of what a little bit of Masechet Brachot, what a little bit of Nevi'im, what a little bit of Midrashim can open up your mind. So let the search continue for NASA and every space program out there. They're cold. They're very cold. They're completely looking in the wrong place. But if you want to know the source of this alien phenomenon on planet Earth, you just have to open up the Chumash, look into Parashat Bereshit, like we spoke about Adam Rishon, the Nephilim, Ne'amah. Look at the Talmud. Masechet Brachot is one of the best tractates you can learn. And you get to see what's really out there. Today, we got a little glimpse of what's really out there when it comes to aliens. But the same goes for all our internal questions. Any question that you might have about anything, if you just give the Torah first a chance to give you the answer, it's the best answer. Because the truth feels right. Everything else is filled with doubt. You know, Marabu Ma'asecha Adonai, Kulam B'chokmah Asita, the greatest example of God's creation, like we said in last week's class, when you look at all the different levels, what is the hybrid creature between all of his creations and God? We came to the conclusion that it's the Jew. We are a unique life form. We're the 0.05 on this planet. On this little planet, the only inhabitable one. And while everyone is looking there, we have to look in here. And where is in here? The Bible. And what is the Bible? It's basic instructions before leaving earth. Open up that book, all your answers will be right there. Shashem varech otchem v'sameach otchem, shitu libechem lechela, pasegu amenotah, leman tesapru do achron. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Shabbat Shalom.